these things become not necessarily the things that are going to make you lose body fat twice as fast, but they are going to make the experience of dropping body fat twice as easy or twice as enjoyable. And that's very important for compliance. It's very important for sticking with the program. It's very important if you have a lot of progress to make. So, if you have more than 10 pounds to lose, this is something you're going to be doing for a while. So you want to make sure it's an enjoyable experience. You want to make sure that training is something that you can enjoy and that you're going to stick with, and that is going to help you build character and be a positive aspect of your life. You don't want training to become a chore or something that you dread or something that gets stagnant and boring or whatever, and then what you do is you start throwing in stupid shit because you just need your training to be more mentally stimulating. Because when you're performing well and seeing results, it doesn't take a lot of creativity to make you really enjoy going to the gym, because you're able to work hard, you're able to push yourself, and you're able to, make progress and strength and whatnot. Almost just fell. And you're able to do, you're able to make those improvements that keep you motivated, even if the program is, say, a little dry. So your training becomes less about entertainment and more about continuing to see those results, and you'll see people be compliant and enjoy that process. So, I'm not one to say just trust the process, but you should enjoy the process if the process is working. And most people do. Most people tend to get frustrated with programs that don't yield results. And so nobody is motivated to continue grinding at something that isn't yielding results. Only the most mentally disciplined or neurotic, because it could be either case, tend to continue to grind away at something even when it's not giving a significant result, or at least not as good of a result as it should. So it's so important that your nutrition and your training match, and that you don't just say, hey, as long as I'm in a calorie deficit, none of this stuff matters, or it's only a small difference. Because while it may be maybe say 10, 20% difference in actual body comp results over time, it's going to be a big difference in the experience of dropping that body fat, right? It's going to be a big difference in how sustainable that is mentally, physically, and it's also going to be a big difference on the health impacts of that. Because while acutely jumping into a calorie deficit and an exercise routine tends to be a positive step in the direction for most people's health, we are not necessarily meant to sustain high volumes of exercise while in a calorie deficit, right? Those would be unsuccessful human beings, or any organism for that matter, right? So when we're getting a really good training response, that offsets a lot of the negatives of just being in a calorie deficit. Okay, so training and getting a training response plus a calorie deficit balance each other out. But when I'm over restricting calories or underutilizing my nutrition, what you will see is that I get less of a training response. And so I get more of the negatives, less of the positives over time. Even though I may be losing body fat, even though I may be losing weight, I will be mismanaging cortisol. My brain chemistry will be suffering. It can affect my sex hormones. A lot of things can start to go down over time. Thyroid, insulin management, right? It is true. You can disrupt insulin management in a calorie deficit, because what you can do is you can get to the point where your liver is not very good at stabilizing your blood sugar when it gets too low. And this is where we see people having issues sleeping at night because of blood sugar control. It's not because their blood sugar is going high, it's because their blood sugar is going low. And so in those cases, we actually need to improve the energy metabolism of the liver, which has been getting beaten up, supporting your body and supporting your training while in this calorie deficit with either not enough calories or not enough carbohydrates to kind of maintain liver health and function and blood sugar balance in the other direction. So starving is not a solution for improving insulin sensitivity long term. Acutely, yeah, obviously if you're going from massively overeating and you take somebody and you put them on zero food even, you're going to see positive impacts. But when you take somebody and you put them on too much of a restrictive diet for too long, you can actually start to challenge their blood sugar regulation in the other direction. And what most people don't understand is that a lot of the things that we use for DNA repair, cellular replication, formation of antioxidants are dependent on carbohydrates. And so when we're not getting sufficient carbohydrates in the diet or not getting enough calories, it does put a burden on those systems, right? So we can see a drop in glutathione over time. We can see a drop in the ability to turn over cells appropriately, repair our DNA and things like that, because we're not properly fueling that pentose pathway, and we're not properly fueling, we're providing the raw nutrients to be able to do that. So we need to look into account what does the body need in order to sustain health and performance while in a calorie deficit. And that means macronutrient ratios matter. It means the total amounts matter. It means the timing can be a big difference on how well I'm going to recover and how well I'm going to perform. So people, when you just look at results, there's no study that says these results came this easy or these results came this difficult. They're like, well, if we threw 12 people and they only ate this, and we get other 12 people we gave this, you didn't take those same people and put them through the opposite study and see, okay, how were those two programs, right? How did they compare, right? Maybe there was an insignificant difference from a clinical perspective on body weight lost over 6 weeks if you did this macronutrient ratio or that. But maybe there was a hugely significant difference in the way people felt, the way people performed, the weights that they did, and their overall sense of well-being and their, we'll say, likeness towards that program, and their ability or their motivation to continue it might be drastically different with those two different macronutrient ratios.